So I'm the moderator, which I love, because I don't really have to do that much work. I should add that in addition to, I recently took a CEO position, but I have been a managing director. I'm now a venture partner at Gotham Ventures, so I do some investing as well. And I think that's probably in a little write-up here, but I just wanted everyone to know that. So I'm going to ask everyone to introduce themselves. Starting, so now you know about me. Let's start with Tanya and just go down the row. Tell us about you a little bit and about your business a little bit.
Cool. So, hi, I'm Tanya Menendez. I'm the co-founder and COO of Makers Row. Makers Row is a marketplace that connects factories and American manufacturers. Basically, our mission is to make manufacturing accessible in the United States. So if you're a brand looking to create your heritage line or something made in the United States, you'd go into Makers Row and find American factories to get it made. My background is actually in sociology and economics, and prior to that, I worked at Goldman and Equitable.
Can I ask a question? Is that allowed, like right now? Which is, are you kind of a market, like because this is about, the panel is about customer acquisition. Just people should know that, right? So my question for you is, I went to your site, I admit I got back from Tel Aviv like yesterday, and I'm a little jet lagged, I don't have a lot of time. But are you a marketplace? Are you acquiring customers on both sides?
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
It seemed that way to me, okay.
So we're on the one side it's factories, American factories, and the other side it's brands and entrepreneurs.
Okay, that's what I thought, but that will influence the rest of the panel.
Hi, I'm Danielle Weinblatt. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Take the Interview. Basically what Take the Interview does is solve challenges associated with the interview process. So there are a tremendous number of those, whether it be coordinating schedules for interviews, facilitating feedback to candidates or between hiring managers to recruiters. And we basically implement our enterprise software into organizations to help organizations hire better people faster. Prior to that, I was at Harvard Business School. I actually dropped out to run Take the Interview full-time. And my background is in private equity and working with portfolio companies.
I'm Carly Strife. I'm one of the co-founders of Bark & Co. Bark & Co. are the makers of BarkBox, which is a monthly subscription for dogs across the US and Canada. Bark Post, which is a content property with the mission of making dogs more famous than cats on the internet. And Bark Care, which is an on-demand veterinary service here in New York City and San Francisco. Prior to Bark & Co., I helped launch the New York City Uber office, and before that I was at Deloitte, and I'm a graduated engineer from RPI.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Utecht. I'm an angel investor and currently venture partner at July Ventures Impact America Fund. A lot of you may know me from Comcas Ventures Catalyst Fund, which I left a couple weeks ago. Have an announcement in
So recently,
very soon. But where I'm going next, still early stage investing. My background before was financial and operational. Financial more boring than operational. I ran an online offline commerce company as CEO, grew that, and then sold throughout the world, and then sold it to a private equity firm. Been in venture for the last several years. I'm happy to say I'm invested in Tanya. I spent a lot of time and love Danielle, and I feel very fortunate because I've been able to co-invest with Joanne for a while and have known Joy for a while as well. So we're looking forward to the panel.
Very friendly panel.
So we'll make it a little controversial.
I'm really jet lagged, so I might say anything at any time. So just stop me if I start really embarrassing myself. I guess the first thing what's interesting about the panel, I think, is we do have sort of consumer-facing companies, I think, in BarkBox, and I think Kathleen invested in some consumer-facing.
I've done consumer and enterprise, and obviously Danielle's enterprise. So
right. I'm saying, so we have a mix of like consumer, enterprise, and then kind of uniquely this marketplace where you're looking for kind of both sides in terms of customer acquisition in order to even get the business going, really. So I think we're going to hear kind of different strategies, and if anything's kind of missing from the mix, I'll try to point that out. But let's, I'm going to do the thing of like asking you what your most sort of success, how you do it best. What have been like the the best initiatives you've taken in terms of customer acquisition, and I'm just going to go down the row. Speak as long as you want. I might fall asleep here.
So I'll try to keep it succinct.
Sure.
So initially, I think that our best customer acquisition strategy was really in terms of like thinking through creating the product itself. And so prior to launching the product, we did a lot of user interviews. We were actually the target market ourselves as we were creating we were basically solving the problem that we had. And so for us, we really focused on like creating the product so that our users were basically obsessed with it. And so it was something that they never had before, something that they would easily share.
How did they find you though?
So we actually reached out to what we felt like were the influencers in the community. And so we reached out to factories that we felt had a really good network, that people trusted their opinion because it's really B2B in that sense, and people really only trust the people in their networks. And so we reached out to the influencers, got them on board, and same thing with brands. We reached out to influential brands and focused in the very beginning on telling our story, on like why we wanted to create Makers Row, why we felt it was important, and the struggle that we went through and why we were really trying to solve a problem for the rest of the community. And we felt like telling the story really resonated with future users, and it helped us get press, and it helped us really connect with our brands on a personal level.
Sorry, go ahead.
Now we're focusing a lot more on telling our users' stories and like the success stories. But early on, just to get started, we told our story and why we felt it was an important initiative to the economy, to the community, and we targeted specific journalists to be able to tell our story for us, and in specific publications that we felt like would hyper target our users. So for us, it's really important to get serious brands, serious entrepreneurs onto the site, and so it's not necessarily consumer facing in that sense. We really wanted to get a very targeted audience so that the factories would be happy getting reached out to by the brands. And so on the factory side, it was very much like community oriented, like reaching out to the influencers, like visiting them, calling them, very like hands-on. And on the designer side and the brand side, it was very much like telling our story, making sure we resonated with them, making sure to create a product that we felt like was designed for them, they felt it was designed for them, and we felt like they would be obsessed with and love.
Joy, do you mind if I tell you, was it, because you have a two-sided marketplace, right? And some of you might be having that. Did you find that it was more important to get, right, the designers on first or the factories on first?
Yeah, initially in the marketplace, we felt like we needed to get the supply. So the brands wouldn't be on there just to be on there. They wanted to find factories. And so we focused 100% on factories at first and really went on the ground to get them cold calling, everything that we had to do possible to get
sales,
like a good.
Really. I mean,
yeah.
And other, non-internet businesses, someone might just call that sales, right? I mean, it sounds like a sales team almost.
Yeah,
right?
and at the time it was me and Matthew like going door to door, visiting factories, reaching out to our networks, and asking them to be evangelists for us, and really reaching out to the influencers that we knew would have a lot of power to be able to branch out into that specific market, because factories are notoriously very difficult to get online, and so we hyper focused on that, and that really helped get the brands on board and really and definitely made it a lot easier. That was a really good differentiator.
Can I ask you, did you use, was there any kind of analytics applied to acquiring a factory on the site? Like, did you think about your cost per factory acquisition? Let's put it another way.
Oh, absolutely not. Like we.
I do have a question for you later if we get there about analytics, but I had to ask you because it sounds like you did.
Yeah, no, at first it was not at all about analytics. It was all about community, about the feeling, about the instinct. Like, we know that if we get this person on board, lots of people will come for them. And so we made sure that we had a full enough value chain, so that, because for us, we need to get sample makers, pattern makers, material suppliers. We want to make sure that when a brand got on there, they had everything that they needed. So we really focused on like getting the right people on board, and we did whatever it took to get them on board.
Yeah. Interesting. You want to take it, Danielle?
Sure. Blood, sweat, and tears, pretty much. I mean, I think one of the biggest issues I see with customer acquisition in the very early stages, particularly with enterprise, is that you have entrepreneurs, obviously sometimes very product-centric entrepreneurs, and they don't want to go out there and sell. I've seen a lot of CEOs who say, oh, well, I'll just hire a VP of sales because this person knows exactly how to sell. I think it is so critical when you're starting your business in the very early stages for you as the CEO and for the co-founders to go out there and actually sell enterprises yourself. Not only are you going to understand what that sales process looks like, but you're going to learn a lot about product market fit. Are we even building a product that our target audience or what we even think our target audience wants? It helps you redefine it. So I think in the very early stages, going out there and even still to this day, being pretty active in enterprise sales has been really important for growing our business. I think thereafter, you can then start to set up a process. One of the most important things about enterprise software and client acquisition is that you need to have reference customers. It's extraordinarily important when you're trying to, so one of our clients is NBC Universal, for example. It was very important for NBC Universal to understand that we had time. And it was very important for time to understand that we had other organizations of that scale and that magnitude. And even to this day, we're on the phone and everyone will ask us, okay, so you work with Gilt Group. What other e-commerce companies do you work with? And so it's really critical that when you're in the early stages, you acquire some key clients that you can then use as reference points. And if you treat those clients really well, you will start to build a web. You'll start to build clients that will love you forever. And what we did in the very early stages is we focused not only on acquiring these companies, but also making them absolutely adore us. And so even now, I get at least 10 inbound either referrals or requests to speak with either friends of our clients or our clients have left the company that they used to work at and now they're at another company, and because they had such a good experience when they used Take the Interview at their prior company, they now want to implement us in their new company. So, sort of the two things that I would say that has made us really successful is number one, being very active, and I was always very active in the sales process in the very beginning. So I know when we bring on new people, I know what would be an excuse. I know what was actually going to work well to close a deal. Why? Because I have closed deals. And then the other thing that I would recommend is don't just sell a client, particularly in enterprise, and then forget what it means to service, what it means to cultivate, what it means to build a relationship, because these clients will help you bring other clients, and particularly in my business, because it's a recurring revenue, it's a SaaS model, you need to really look at churn, and if you make clients absolutely love you and love your product, you will have retention. And I'm very proud to say that since we started the business, we have not lost a single client. So we've had 100% retention for the past 3 years.
Yeah, questions. Yeah, go for it.
How did you get your first 10 clients? First 10 customers? Did you know them? They were strangers?
Again, so you have to hustle, right? Like this is like all about like use anything and everything that you possibly can to get those first 10 clients. So one of our first clients was Kathleen, so the test prep company based here in New York. So we were given that introduction through the former CMO of Kaplan, who was an advisor to Dream It, which was the accelerator that I was a part of. And so I had that meeting, and I literally pinged that VP of Talent Acquisition every month for about a year and to meet with her and to meet with the team until finally they realized, you know what? Now's the perfect time to get started. And after, and I will say that, when you're in the early stages, you do have to give some freebies away. You have to give the free trial. You have to think about pilot strategy. So it was difficult at first. But I read an article actually recently. I think it was going viral on LinkedIn. It was about polite persistence. I think that is probably the only thing that has sustained me through this entire journey is polite persistence and not letting people who close doors in your face actually, not letting that affect your desire and your ability to get up the next day and do it over and over again. Same thing with Zappos, got connected through, it was an investor that we pitched who did not invest in us, who introduced us. He wanted to see how we would do if he introduced us to a client. So he introduced us to the head of talent of Zappos, who's now been a client of ours for 2.5 years. So he didn't end up investing, and we got a reference through there. So it's thinking about how can I, if this situation, I'm building this relationship right now, if this is not going to, at least in this situation, get me capital, how can it open doors? How can it build relationships? And I don't think people should be afraid of being opportunistic. You shouldn't be afraid about going to a networking event and be like, here's what I'm doing. Do you know people who work in HR? Do you know people who work in talent acquisition or whatever your target audience is? It's sort of an ongoing joke, and it's the last thing I'll say about it. But so our COO, Ty Abernethy, he used to be single. He's not anymore. He has a gorgeous, amazing girlfriend. And he was using, he's going to kill me right now. This is streaming live, right?
I think so.
Okay. He used to be on one of those dating apps, and he used to date a lot of people. So I'd always say to him, I'm going to get killed for this.
You are going to get killed.
I'm going to get killed.
I would kill you.
So he used to date a lot of these girls, and he'd be like, well, some of these girls are nice, some of these girls aren't nice. And I'm like, well, what companies do they work at, right? like and he was like, well, one girl works at this company and this other girl works at, I'm like, dude, at the very least, if you're not going to date this girl, get an introduction to their VP of talent acquisition. That is what you have to do. You have to hustle to get your first 10 clients, even if it means using your Tinder dates to get into those companies. We will do anything and everything. Now it's a little bit easier, luckily, because we have more of a brand, we have a name in the market.
That's what I want to talk about. Just one, and then I do want to get to sort of the consumer side of the house. This is like the enterprise side of the house. But while we're on the enterprise side of the house, that all sounds great, but really hard to scale.
Mm-hmm.
So can you talk a little bit about, it sounds like you're both kind of getting to a point where you're scaling. So how are you structuring your sales teams? What are sort of some of the magic that you've learned to get to scale? Is it inside sales, outside sales? Those are kind of magic words in the industry. How are you doing that? And then we'll keep it pretty short because I want those guys to get some time. I have no idea what time I have to finish, but this could go on forever. Go ahead.
So we started focusing a lot more on analytics now that we have a larger base.
I don't know, a number against customer acquisition, does that mean?
For us, it's 35,000 brands that are the buyers on that side, and then 4,000 factories. And so really leveraging their networks and allowing for them to be able to share, but also really seeing who are most valuable customers and where are they coming from is really important now that it's not so much on the ground, not so much focused on press and PR and communities. It's still focused on communities, but it's more focused on leveraging our current community to allow them to share. And so now we're a lot more focused on SEO, on analytics, on content creation, SEM, and leveraging
more traditional on the consumer side, which I think we're going to get to all those tactics afterwards. Yeah.
But really staying focused on getting the right people in the door, as opposed to just doing a broad campaign.
Danielle, what about you? You've been out there sort of one by one getting them. How are you scaling that process now?
So we've hired salespeople internally, so we've figured out the model that makes the most sense for us. That is similar to it is the Aaron Ross predictable revenue model of splitting up your prospecting and your lead gen from your account executives, your closers. So we know exactly, we use a lot of analytics in our company, so for your earlier questions, so we know exactly how many touch points we A/B test a template, so we know exactly how many people we need to reach out to set up a certain number of appointments. Those appointments at a certain percentage in terms of the funnel convert to a second meeting converts to a certain percentage to a third meeting. Third meetings are typically your pricing discussion, and then from your pricing discussion, we close a certain percentage of deals. So we know exactly how many appointments we need to set up and how many account executives need to be on these appointments in order to reach our budget numbers and close deals. And then obviously of the pilots that we still do, we have a conversion of those pilots to annual contract, which is pretty high once you get a client on board. So we do measure everything. We have funnel metrics, we have a training program, we have a sales deck, we optimize the sales deck, and we A/B test everything.
Right. I love the A/B testing. So I'm gonna move us along to what I think of as more the consumer end over there, the far end.
I cover both.
You can, she does
I'll
both.
let you do the
Yeah.
consumer. You go.
So
I'm summing
How
stuff
do
up.
you-
I never
assume-
type on my phone. I'm summing it up. I'll let you go first.
I'm assuming that it's not the dogs, but the dog owners that you're going after, right? So
It's the dogs.
it's actually the
Yeah,
dogs.
it's the
Okay,
dogs.
so let's talk about that. So how did you get dogs?
So I guess our biggest channel is word of mouth, and I think that is because we built something that people want to talk about, and obviously it's dogs, and they want to share it. So we have a lot of organic traffic through word of mouth and social channels. So people sharing pictures of the product, people sharing pictures of their experience, whether it's Instagram or Facebook, and then we also use those channels to kind of boost that word of mouth by paying for acquisition through those as well. I think it's we got very lucky that we are dogs and people just naturally share them everywhere on the internet. So that's really what's worked for us. But aside from word of mouth, which is over 50% of our kind of monthly acquisition, we run 50 different types of channels, whether it's paid marketing or affiliate marketing, SEM. I guess we don't really do SEO. TV,
Or do you have
radio,
content that
content.
is-
Well, we
yeah.
have an entire business dedicated to content, and it's not a salesy. It's not a salesy channel for us, but building that content, pushing it through our social channels, building those up, and then being able to serve those people with ads has really helped us. So having that content with our commerce has been hugely successful for us.
And do you have a favorite channel? Is there sort of a favored ROI amongst the channels? Like, what's your most successful channel?
Probably referral for us. So every time you invite a friend and they sign up, they get a code to get a discount, and you get a free month extended on your box. So we have one woman who has 72 years of free BarkBox just because she's told her entire community to sign up. So that channel really works for us, and everybody kind of wins in that. And I think the other one that's really exciting for us is shelters and rescues, because it really fuels our social mission. So every time a shelter or a rescue adopts out a new dog and tells them about BarkBox, we pay them, real money and real money that they would normally have to kind of just pitch donors. So this morning I signed 350 checks to go out to rescues for last month, just people who are kind of pushing customers our way. So it feels good for us because we're able to kind of help get dogs in homes and also spoil them with the product.
And how do you use analytics in sort of thinking about one channel versus another? What are you thinking about every day?
Sure. So we measure everything. We use Google Analytics for almost every one of our channels, email and affiliate and things like that. And we have, so like I said, 50 different channels. We have a CPA on every single one of them. And we'll try anything once, and then we kind of try to optimize around the ones that we see that really work, push more money, more cash to drive some efficiency in those channels. So,
Do you use any third-party tools to help you optimize between the channels? I've seen some, which is why I can't remember the names of them honestly, but I know they exist. At least, there are third-party tools that will, for example, help you optimize SEM between different, places to put your SEM money.
sure. I don't run that I don't run the acquisition department, so
Okay.
this is all kind of me. This is all secondhand knowledge.
Sure.
But I know that we do things to optimize our conversion funnel, once we actually fill the funnel and get people to the site, but I don't know if we're using anything specifically around SEM for analytics.
There is stuff out there that I've seen companies use that help you very effectively analyze your SEM channels. And if I could think of the names, I
HubSpot.
would.
HubSpot is pretty good.
There you go.
And
Thank you.
Marketo.
Thank you. Yeah. So you used to have like a human being or several human beings in your company. That's like kind of all they thought about. And now you can you outsource it for like not a lot of money, have one person run it and optimize your SEM channels. And I've seen companies that I've invested in use that to absolutely unbelievable effect. So, and it was like eye-opening to me because I ran a business where I had like lots of people working on SEM, and this was like, whoa, this is really a game changer. Do you have a question?
No, I was gonna
I'm
say,
allowed to do that?
if you
Whatever.
wanna optimize landing pages, there's
Yeah.
a company called Optimizely, you pay $300 a month and you literally can change words, colors, placements, you don't have to code, you can have
Yeah.
like 20% of your audience, 50% of your audience, you can A/B test, ABCD test,
Right.
and when a winner wins, roll that out to your whole site and then optimize from there. So Optimize is a pretty good tool for that, and also for funnel and analytics, Mixpanel is also a really great tool.
Yeah, I actually use that in my business now, but I think it's a little more complicated than it needs to be.
You have to
That's
have your
a whole other
engineering
side.
team make
Yes,
that.
they did. Anyway.
That's my other
But I'm like a
portfolio
dumb
company. I
dumbass
love
who
her.
I
Like,
use.
she's awesome too.
Yeah. But yeah. So they help you with your funnel, like you can really analyze retention through mixed panels. It's actually a very sophisticated, great
It's expensive
tool,
though.
but it's very expensive, yeah. So
Well
Kathleen,
worth it.
talk about consumer.
Yeah.
Will you?
Yeah.
Like,
So a couple
Give
things.
me
So first,
more than one company.
yeah. So I'm gonna pull from a lot of what they have said so far, and then add some of my own. I've been very fortunate to work with a ton of companies in both the consumer and enterprise space. I keep telling people VCs are only good, I say, for two things. One, their contents and contacts and network. And the second thing is just they see a lot of things and to bounce ideas off of. And it was what Joanne was saying. You invest in the company, you want them to lead, but we do see a lot of things. So that's what we're good for. I guess like a distant third is money, but there's a bunch of people with money. So, Danielle said something that resonated. She said several things that resonated with me. Is that the CEO should know the process. I think when you're really, really early, that you should actually do the process yourself. So you understand, how do I acquire customers, especially if you're in enterprise sales. Sell it yourself. See what people say to you. You know the product in and out. This is your baby. Understand what are people's complaints? Do they have concerns? Do they love it? If they don't love it, what are they thinking? You might have to do more hand-holding, and this might not be scalable at first, but you really need to understand the customer. And that's so key in the beginning. After that, then it's great. You can have a whole customer acquisition department, and they can do that. But in the beginning, you really need to understand what does the customer want to do, and you said that, and you did that yourself, and that's why now you can probably say, oh, what are people saying? And I would say, even after the business scales very far, still go on some of those customer calls. If it's once every 6 months and go, okay, something slipped with the product, like what are customers saying? You don't ever want to be far from the customer. So regardless of what you're building, if someone doesn't want to buy it, eventually if it can't monetize, it really doesn't matter. Right, you can go for one of those great aqua hires and that's lovely, but what you really want to do is build a business. That's why we're doing this. So I thought that was really poignant. I think another thing is once you have these customers is really understand is what is their ROI? You're building this product. Why do they buy this? Why are they using this? If it's a consumer product, why do they care? What pain point are you solving? Truly understand that, because once you understand that, then you can understand what else to build, what else they need. And I think that's great. And in enterprise, then you need to build a case study off of it. It's so much easier to sell once you have that case study. So many people say, and I think the hardest thing is getting those first couple of customers. Because once you have a case study and say, oh, I save you this much time, I save you this much money. We've done it for NBC, we've done it for GE, we've done it for whatever. People go, oh yeah, this is a no-brainer. Okay, I want to do this. Because this is a nice to have, must have. And a lot of the products, and in HR technology, it goes, is it a nice have, sounds lovely, or is it a must have? Oh yeah, I need to do this, I only have so much budget, this is like why I need it. But you only have that once you prove it out. So that was great. I think what Tanya said that was amazing is you have to understand, especially if you have a two-sided marketplace and you have two customers, that's probably one of the hardest things ever to build. You really have to understand which side of the market do I need first. Once I have that side of the market, then which other side will come in, and that's what she discovered. I thought that was really, really, key. I think you also have to understand, and Tanya touched on this, is what's your most valuable customer? People always say to me, what do I need to get to my Series A? Like, okay, I'm in my seed, like to raise my seed, how many customers, what kind of traction do I need? And it's such an ambiguous answer. Like, it depends. It depends what kind of customers you're going after. Is it high volume? Are they monetizing? How engaged are they? So it really depends. And say, who's your most valuable ones, and then how do you treat them? First, maybe you need some volume, and how do you get those on? So I think you really have to understand what's these different customers I have. And in a couple of things I have to disagree, and not because I'm trying to be contrarian and make the panel a little more fun, but I think, the free versus paid, I disagree with Danielle. I think it should be paid trials for enterprise. I think sometimes enterprise customers, if they get it for free, if you get it for free, you're like, oh, that was free, that's lovely. But if you actually have to pay for it, especially in an enterprise, people value it more. They're like, oh shit, we're sorry, we're probably taping this, that's why I was worried. But they're kind of like, oh my god, we're paying for this, like, I need to actually use this, I have to show, and especially if I was the champion of the product, and I've convinced my budget that we're gonna pay for this, I better use it, and I better use it well. I actually always tell people, go for paid contracts, even if it means that maybe they're in like junior pricing, you tell them, hey, you're guaranteed this pricing a year or two in, like, put them in, grandfather them in, but like, do paid trial versus free whenever possible. I think if you have to give it away free, I think you need to then kind of reevaluate, unless it's someone that's helping you develop the product, but really pilots I think should be paid. And then
it is one of the first questions that VC will ask when you show them your customers.
Well, yeah, it is, and it's like
and so often in meetings I took with companies, they would be like,
and to clarify, all of our pilots now are paid. I'm talking about in the initial, call it like 6 months since we launched, because we were so new, we had no credibility. That's why we gave it. But I agree with you now, every single trial is paid.
So we only have like 5 more minutes, and do you have anything you want to say?
30 seconds, just touching on Carly.
Yeah.
I think what she did with customer acquisition and going to social, I think if you want to get a lot of great press and just, I have the philosophy of do good and do well at the same time, have social causes and say, okay, 1%, and you've seen a lot of people acquire customers because they're going back to social channels. I think that's a great way. And then just to add, I don't know, my own original thought, every now and then VCs have them. But I've seen like what works, I guess it's not original, but what works or doesn't, depending on who you're selling to, like some of these campus ambassador programs can help.
Yeah.
You just have to understand what your customer is. If it's old people, if it's young people, whatever it is, there's partnerships all along the way that can be really helpful for acquiring customers.
It's interesting, partnerships were not mentioned at all.
No, but that can be like the best way to acquire customers. I was just looking at a company and they went into forums with people that are sick and they're selling meals to all these people on it, and it's one of the best channels. So always look at partnerships and say, where can I acquire customers, quickest and cheapest.
It's the most significant thing I think that didn't come up. So I think like if you had to summarize, it's like B2B, sales, be really, grassroots at first, be there, understand your customers, then build a scalable sales process. And on the consumer side, there's no magic bullet. I think it is a mix of many, many different areas of acquisition and what works and measure and decide which is working best for you. So very, very, very quickly, what's like the worst, stupidest mistake you ever made in customer acquisition? Quickly, each one of you, and then we'll take maybe one question. Is that okay?
Definitely not focusing on SEO from the beginning. A few months ago, we started looking at webmaster tools and really focusing in on that, and it increased our traffic by 30%. And I really wish we had just done that from day one, because we probably would have a lot more traffic now.
Danielle, what did you screw up?
Well, related to that topic, I think we didn't charge for pilots quickly enough, because we actually felt that we didn't get the engagement. All of your points were absolutely correct. We didn't get the engagement initially that we would have gotten had we actually charged. And once we started charging, people started to take us seriously. So yes, I'd say that was the hardest thing initially, and we started getting cash, which was great. So
Carly, biggest screw up.
I think for the first year we tried to spend a lot of money and throw a lot of money at SEM, where no one's actually looking for a monthly box of toys and treats for their dog. So we dumped a lot of money into that, then kind of took it all away, and now we only pay SEM for branded search. So that was kind of a learning lesson for us.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's key to just not fall too in love with your own idea. You might go, oh my god, this is definitely gonna work. If it doesn't work, be flexible, say, oh god, this didn't work, let's do something else.
Cool. And I think there was a question, then I have one last comment.
Well, quick question about the partnerships you mentioned. I mean, debating between going directly to customers versus using those partners, whether there will or not incentives and will it be effective to use? Curious to hear.
Yeah, you have to see if it's worth it. It's like, and I hate to say that it depends, but it really, really depends on what your business is. And if someone has a huge distribution channel, a lot of times it's worth it to pay like whatever kind of fee you might be paying them to get it, especially considering how much other types of marketing costs. Both are costs in terms of actual money and time. And a lot of times I tell people, okay, what are the licensing channels? And you might not even think about it, or who else is selling to your exact same customers. It's interesting, even at Comcas, they had something called the Upware store that was selling a lot of things to SMBs. And so it was going, okay, what's the best products that we have to sell to SMBs? And you already have these salespeople going out to all these great SMBs. And it's like, is that worth it to pay the fee? A lot of times it is, but it just depends. You have to go through these channels, and this is where analytics matters. Like, how expensive is this for me? And then what kind of results? And you can always analyze, and you just have to be able to iterate and just look and say, okay, what's going? And as your product scales, it might change. And it's again the flexibility to be like, what's working and what's not.
So I think we're out of time, but I just want to say one thing, which is this is an all-female panel with a female moderator,
Really?
and no one gave a shit.
I had it.
And I think that's really great. It wasn't called a women's panel. It wasn't, it wasn't branded women. It just was a bunch of women. And I think that's progress in and of itself. So thank you, Orrick, for that.